To me, two of the defining words that I love when it comes to mission and ministry are these ideas of vision and grit. Vision being something that you feel like God has really laid upon your heart and that he's calling you to do. And so when we started Redeemed Online and we started with Share Jesus, it was this idea about how video could really reach people in a different way. And at the time, no one was doing anything like this. But I want to share with you today a little bit about the vision of Vagabond Missions and the work that I get to help be a part of. And the other word, grit, is this idea of when we have a vision, if it's just dreaming, it's just thinking about big things or wanting to do big things. But the idea of grit is really really building out to that vision. And how do we get there? What I love about the term grit, it means that not only do you have this big goal, but you have these little goals along the way. And so let me today share a little bit with you about the vision of what Vagabond Missions is and why I feel like the Lord has really invited me to invest my heart, my life, my time. And I want to invite you to be a part of that as well. When I talk about Vagabond Missions, I think often of a story a friend of mine told me about one day when they were driving down the highway. And as they were driving down the highway, they noticed an older gentleman driving next to them. The only problem was there was like a grassy median in between them, and that man was driving the wrong way. And he just kept driving, and they were honking the horn. They were trying to get his attention. They were trying to do everything they could to say, like, you got to stop. You got to get off the road. But nothing was working. So eventually what happened is they sped up. They pulled into the grassy median. They ran out of their car, and they could hear cars coming towards this gentleman. And they got into the lane where the gentleman was, and they made him get off and pull into the median, the grassy median. And when they finally he put his window down, and they said, like, didn't you know you were going the wrong way? And he was like visibly shaken. And he said, like, I knew it in the moment I was going the wrong way, but I just didn't know what to do. He was overwhelmed. He didn't know until someone was willing to take a step, into danger, a step into his, knowing that there were cars coming. They made a risky decision to step into his life, to save his life. And so often I think we see train wrecks or we see things happening, in the world, and maybe it's in a far off country in the third world, and we feel like we can't do anything, or there's these societal problems and we don't know what we can do. But the reality is sometimes we can do something. And that's what Vagabond Missions is all about. It's about stepping into the lives of inner city teens and introducing them to the gospel. And how do we do that? It's as simple, we believe, as imitating the model and mission of Jesus. That yes, Jesus gave talks. Yes, Jesus spent time in the temple and in the synagogue just sharing about who God is and telling stories. And he spent time with crowds. But most of the time, he just got to know people relationally. It was how he shared the good news about who God is and who he is and what it means to be loved and who we are. And so our missionaries, day in and day out, spend time where kids are, where teens are in the inner city, meeting them on basketball courts, at bus stops, in schools, sporting events, wherever kids are in the inner city. That's where you'll find our missionaries. And we start to build relationships and start to share the gospel with them. One other story I'll share with you is a story of a kid named Deshaun, who one day at a youth night was really kind of acting up, actually. He was kind of being a little bit crazy. And we had one of the missionaries had to take him outside and say, like, hey, would you just calm down a little bit? Even if you don't want to listen, there's some kids who do. And so he calmed down a little bit, got through the night. And later that night, so he had left, he came back, and as the missionaries were leaving, he came back and he said, I forgot my backpack. And so the missionaries walked him into the church. And there, the only light on was the light on the crucifix. And he looked up and he said, as he looked at the cross, he said, is that cream Jesus? And the missionaries laughed for a second. But then they realized he wasn't laughing. And he had never heard, he didn't know what a crucifix was. He had never seen one. And he thought he knew what it was. And we could only think of maybe he heard King Jesus or something. And he really thought this was Jesus's name. And that night, Christopher, our missionary at the time, shared the story of the cross with him. And it was eye-opening for Deshaun. And he said, that's sick, as in cool. And he's like, I got to start coming to church. And it wasn't a moment of life change for him necessarily, but it was a moment that really opened my eyes and reminded me that, the cross, we see it, we take it for granted. Maybe we know that story, but there are people, there are teens in our cities, maybe only miles away from us, who don't know the love of Jesus, who don't know what it means to be loved by God. And so day in and day out, we work to share the good news, to share the fact that we are loved, we are created by God, and we are meant to be children of God, and we are meant to know and love and serve Jesus. And we do that through relationship. We do that through our missionaries, and we do that through our missionary partners. That really, mission is only made possible by people who are willing to get out, to step out of their car, to get into the lane and say, you matter enough. You matter enough that whether it's by donating, whether it's by being a missionary, whether it's by volunteering or serving some way, I believe that you can make a difference. And you can do that today by getting involved and being a part of Vagabond Missions. And tomorrow I'm going to share a little bit more about what I'm doing and why I'm moving into what I'm doing. So just want to invite you today to realize you can be a part of something big, of something great, of reaching kids in the inner city. So thank you and God bless you.